What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Broken Boosted episode 6. In this episode, I get so broke that I sell my tripod for turbo parts. No, I'm just kidding. I just didn't bring it today. And I also don't have Broken Boosted. I have my regular daily driver car. And it's going to be a little bit different today because I'm not going to be installing anything. I'm going to be covering a topic that can be very confusing and overwhelming when you're turbocharging your Miata, and that is how to select a turbo manifold. And the reason it is so difficult is manifolds come in so many different shapes and sizes and price ranges, and if you're just getting into the turbo Miata game, you might not know where to start. So hopefully I'm going to clear some things up for you in this video. So one really good option you have when choosing a manifold for your build is a high quality cast iron manifold. I'm talking about the ones like Flying Miata and Bell Engineering. Cast manifolds are good because they can spool a turbo relatively fast. They're compact, they're easy to install, and the best part about them is they're freaking bulletproof. I'm talking about that Bell Engineering cast manifold right there, and the Flying Miata ones are just as good. So the best part about that manifold being so tough and bulletproof is when you buy them used, they're just as good as new as far as strength. They might be a little bit dirty or something like that. So hop on Miataturbo.net, my favorite forum, classifieds, and find yourself a used cast manifold for $200 to $300 instead of spending the $400 on a brand new, which, don't get me wrong, $400 for a brand new manifold of this quality, you will not regret buying it. So that's your first option, is a good quality cast manifold. So another good option is an eBay cast manifold. Now, I haven't personally tried one, but I really want to, because cast iron is just so strong that how could you really mess it up? And they're a lot cheaper on eBay, so maybe they wouldn't flow as well or perform as well, but they're probably still really strong, which is why I want to try one. You can get them right now for the 1.8 on eBay, as far as I've seen, for $90 or so. When I was originally planning the budget for Broken Boosted, there was a 1.6 cast iron manifold for about $120. When I went to buy it, it's gone. They're like nowhere to be found. So I'm kind of bummed about that, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to stay within my budget because there really is no other option for getting a cast manifold that cheap. So I'm going to do my best, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and I'll discuss what I'm doing a little bit later in this video. So let me tell you what to avoid. There is a company that a lot of people ask me about called CX Racing, and they do a manifold, and it's like $90. It looks like this. And these are the manifolds that you want to stay away from. There are a few people that have had good luck with them, and good for them, but I don't trust them. I don't trust that this cheap manifold is not going to send a piece of weld into my turbine wheel when it's spinning 150,000 RPM and just destroy the turbo. And I have never used one of these manifolds myself, but I have seen online and heard stories of these things breaking literally in days after you put your turbo car together. You do not want your manifold disintegrating. I've seen many pictures of just broken and cracked and just completely falling apart manifolds. So stay away from these cheap tubular manifolds. These all 304 SS stainless insane performance gains. Don't even, trust me, just don't even mess with those things. Another example is this long tube style, or this ram horn style. It's the same deal. They use really low quality tubing, and especially with the long runners, you have the weight of the turbo and the vibrations, and those runners will just start to crack and fall apart very quickly. So I personally advise that you stay away from those products. This is my answer to trying to stay within budget. This is a DIY manifold kit. It comes with a couple elbows, a couple T's, a head flange, a turbo flange, and you get this kit and you build it yourself. Now, I can't build it myself because I don't have a welder. So I'm taking it to my friend, Rob Spec, and he's gonna build it for me. So before you think I'm going all mighty car mods on you, I'm not gonna go to a shop and use a bunch of free stuff and build my car that way. I'm trying to do this as realistically as possible. So this kit for the elbows and everything is from Mazworx. I'll include a link in the description. The only thing that Mazworx did not have was the head flange for the 1.6 liter, so I had to get this off of eBay straight up. $115 for all the parts. And I'm gonna add on top of that my friend's labor. I'm just gonna bring him the parts, tell him to build me a manifold, and charge me whatever it is. So I'm hoping that it's still gonna be reasonable and I'll be able to stay in the budget, and we'll just have to see. One thing you have to consider when buying your manifold is the manifold locates the turbo. So different manifolds are gonna make the turbo sit in different spots. When the turbo moves around, the downpipe moves around. So that's why I recommend buying a manifold and a downpipe in a combo from one company, because then everything lines up with your existing exhaust system. If you get a custom manifold, or if you buy a manifold and a downpipe from two different companies, the downpipe is probably not going to line up with the stock exhaust, so you'll have to have things modified. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing you have to consider are the flanges on the manifold. A 1.6 liter manifold will not fit on a 1.8 liter engine, and vice versa. Same thing with the turbo. If you have a T25 or a T28, you gotta have a T2 flanged manifold. If you have a TD04, you gotta have a TD04 manifold. So that's another thing to consider when you're buying it. So hopefully that clears up some things about selecting a turbo manifold for your build. As always, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. As for me right now, what do you say we freaking take this box of parts over to Rob's spec and see what he can do with them?